Welcome into the San Francisco 49ers Report. I'm Shea Sr. And coming up on today's show, the preview that we put out on Sunday night for Packers-Niners was great. 50,000 views on YouTube, but with more scouting, with some more information, with some more research, this preview I think is going to be even better as the Niners get ready to host the Packers on Saturday night, Levi's Stadium in the NFC Divisional Round. Speaking of that game, we're going to be live for it for another watch party right here on the channel. We're going to do a 2-hour pregame show to really set the foundation and set the stage for kickoff. You don't want to miss it. The most exciting and informative channel and show right here on YouTube. Our coverage gets underway 6:15 p.m. Eastern, 3:15 p.m. Pacific. You look at these betting odds here. I think the odds makers, despite some potential rain and wind being in the forecast, imagine that this game is going to be a high-scoring affair. The over-under, pretty high for a playoff game at 50.5 between two defenses that of late have been playing well. Niners all season. Packers really have turned that defensive corner over the last month or so. And the San Francisco 49ers, I know they're the number one seed. I know they have the rest advantage. 9.5-point favorites. That is by far the largest line in both the NFC and the AFC during divisional weekend. And my thoughts on that line right here, I think the Packers are being disrespected. And the Niners and everything that they've said this week have paid their respects to Green Bay, saying we can't look past this opponent. They really impressed us with that win over the Dallas Cowboys. And I'm not sure that the odds makers in Vegas really paid close attention to that Packers-Cowboys game, but also how this Packers team has been playing for a good while. They started the year 2-5. They're 8-3 since. And this is why this team is really dangerous, and this is why I think this is going to be a close game on Saturday night. Jordan Love has been slinging it. On platform, off platform, clean pocket, muddy pocket, in structure, out of structure. The Packers, as we're about to talk about here in a little while, are so deep at wide receiver and tight end. This front office has done a great job of building up this football roster. Aaron Jones has 4 consecutive games of more than 100 rushing yards. He's been playing great lately. Their secondary is skilled and deep, although I don't love their defensive scheme. And they're young, confident, fearless, and the pressure here is not on Green Bay. They're playing with house money. The pressure is on the San Francisco 49ers. And when I talk about Green Bay's weapons, this is a credit to Brian Gutekunst, their general manager, as well as their entire scouting department. And it seems as though over the entire course of this franchise's existence, they've always done a great job of drafting and developing players. And they're never really an organization that plucks big game during free agency and overpays for a lot of players. Instead, they draft and develop. The Packers are the only team in the NFL with 6 pass catchers who had between 300 and 800 receiving yards. Here they are right here, and the Niners secondary going to have their hands full. Jayden Reed is a really, really good player. 64 catches, 793 yards, and 8 touchdowns this year. I'm not even sure he's their number one wide receiver. Romeo Doubs went off against Dallas, and this year had 59 catches, 674 yards, and 8 touchdowns. Dontayvion Wicks is an explosive, twitchy player. 39 grabs for 581 yards. So the lack of catches, but the amount of yards goes to show you that he's an explosive threat with those 4 touchdowns as well. Christian Watson is a freak athlete who missed a lot of time because he's been dealing with hamstring injuries the last 2 years, but he still had 28 catches for 422 yards and 5 touchdowns. He's really tall, so he can take the top off of the defense and be a red zone threat. And then both of their tight ends are probably future Pro Bowlers. And it's very reminiscent of what the New England Patriots had with a 2 tight end set where both players are really gifted and skilled in Rob Gronkowski, and I know Aaron Hernandez, got to say the name, but he was a really good player when he was playing with New England. Tucker Kraft this year, 31 catches, 355, 2 touchdowns, and then Luke Musgrave, you can make the argument he's even better. He had 34 catches and 2 touchdowns as well. So this Niners secondary, and Steve Wilks has a defensive background and has done a great job in coaching that unit up and developing some of the players there and putting them in a position to succeed in this defensive scheme. They're going to be tested. And it's going to be really important for this Niners team to get a pass rush, but to also stop the run. And if the 49ers cannot stop the run, then the Packers can go 4 weapons wide, maybe even 5 weapons wide across the entire field and really pose some challenges for this Niners defense. And Jordan Love has made some of the biggest strides in season of any quarterback that I've seen in recent memory. As part of that Packers 2-5 start, he really struggled. Didn't look to be the franchise guy, but he's caught fire over the last 10 games, and specifically over the last 5, he's also been really good. A passer rating of 126.5. He's thrown for more than 1,300 yards, and he's making very good decisions with the football. 12 touchdowns and no picks. And he's been able to find success because Matt LaFleur has really tapped into the running game. And when you have a quarterback as gifted as Aaron Rodgers, sometimes you marvel at his ability, you marvel at his talent, and what he wants to do, you do because it's Aaron frickin' Rodgers, especially when he's linking up with Davante Adams. But what issues that causes is that sometimes you go away from the ground game. It's not what Matt LaFleur is doing with this team. They are a pretty evenly distributed, I should say, passing and throwing team. And you go back to the ground game, Aaron Jones behind this offensive line, who the Packers have been able to find some really good players along the trenches in the draft. They've opened up some big holes. And Dallas could not stop the run at all. And then what happened? That opened up explosives through the aerial attack deep downfield. Their defensive system and scheme in that game against the Packers for Dallas was also just terrible. But for the last 4 games for Aaron Jones, he's been over 100 yards. And in the previous 3 prior to the wild card round, no touchdowns. And then he finds the end zone 3 times against Dallas. The guide to defending Green Bay here, you got to stop the run first and foremost. They are going to try to establish the run. The Niners have faced the fewest rushing attempts per game among all teams in the NFL. They've also been a bad tackling team. And that could lead to the Packers having success on the ground. And then what happens then? Leads to passing success. And Jordan Love can make plays all over the yard. In the pocket, out of the pocket, extending plays. Even when you get pressure, this is very Aaron Rodgers-esque. When Rodgers was young, he kind of just drifts back and has the arm strength and the flick of the wrist to be able to kind of just fade back, flick the wrist, and throw the ball deep downfield. He's also been accurate with touch there, and he can make plays with his legs. So disciplined pass rush lanes and just having a disciplined pass rush going to be important for this Niners team. And because Green Bay has so many weapons, secondary communication is going to be paramount. The Cowboys didn't have it. They got gashed. And then at linebacker, Dre Greenlaw's been dealing with an Achilles injury all week. And that's of note. And while Jair Alexander hasn't practiced all week, and that's a little bit of an issue for Green Bay on the injury report, the Dre Greenlaw injury with that Achilles and the tendonitis there, going up against these 2 tight ends, Fred Warner's going to have to play a good game. Dre Greenlaw's going to have to play a really good game. But also the Niners in the slot going to have to come to play as well. And then lastly, the Niners going to have to get home on the pass rush. You do that and you stop the run, San Francisco, NFC Championship game bound. With that, I ask you this. What is your confidence level in a Niners win on Saturday? I want you to type H for high, M for medium, or L for a low level of confidence. Let me know in the comment section right now. I'll let you know about Factor, and I'll tell you I love Factor. I also love the deal that they have for the faithful, 50% off. When you use the code NinersChat50, you pick your pre-made meals. They are prepped and cooked to perfection. They are delivered straight to your door. Everything is already done for you. The only thing you have to do is unopen the box, put it in the microwave, and enjoy them. Chef-crafted, dietitian-approved meals that are delivered straight to your door for America's #1 ready-to-eat meal delivery service. And you have a lot of different options. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But also within that, keto, protein, veggie. You can get some smoothies and snacks as well. This is like a whole kitchen that you have at your disposal. Code NinersChat50. FactorMeals.com. Niners-Chat50. Get 50% off, as you can see, with all of the images that we've been showing you on your screen. These meals are savory. More keys to the game for me for the Niners to pull out a victory to get to their 4th NFC Championship game over the last 5 years. Niners are going to have to jump out to an early lead in this game. Why is that? The 49ers don't have a lot of experience in coming from behind. We know the dubious record for Kyle Shanahan in the fourth quarter. That's, of course, a big problem. But the Niners have had a lead at halftime in 11 of their 12 victories this season. And the Niners have had bad performances in 2023 when they've had to come from behind. In fact, all of their losses coming in games in which the other team was able to take an early lead. Cleveland Browns, Minnesota Vikings, Cincinnati Bengals, and the Baltimore Ravens. Los Angeles Rams, I'm not going to really count it because the Niners didn't play any of their starters. Number 2, and Trace, if we could change this to jump out to an early lead, the 49ers are going to have to establish the run. The same things that I said about Jordan Love and how the pass game opens up for him with all those bevy of weapons, and the Niners have a bevy of weapons as well. The same can be said for Brock Purdy or any quarterback across the entire National Football League. When you establish the run, the defense then has to crash up toward the line of scrimmage, and that's when you can pop a deep pass over the top of the defense. You run some play action, you run a little zone read, and it just makes the life for your quarterback a lot easier, opening up the sight lines. And this Packers rushing defense has not been good this year. And the Niners' strength is in running the football. There have been 4 games this season where the Packers have given up more than 200 rushing yards against a bad Atlanta team, a mediocre Steelers team, and a bad Giants team. The only team in the playoffs, Steelers-Lions, that's really legit of this grouping is Detroit, and they popped off for 211. But it's not just a mirage here. This is a consistent pattern for this Green Bay team. Notable rushing performances against this Packers defense. There are 9 games here in which teams have run for at least 100 yards. And the other benefit of running the football, you keep that Packers offense on the sideline. And Kyle Shanahan's bread and butter, what he does such a great job of is just being creative with his running scheme, with his running designs, and then the pass off of that. Running the football, scheming up plays in the run game led by Christian McCaffrey is something that the Niners did so well this year. And this Niners rushing offense matches up very good against this Packers rushing defense. The Niners had a rush play percentage, meaning they ran the football the second most times among all teams in the NFL at nearly 49%. So almost dead even, run pass at 50-50. Their yards per rush, number 4 in the NFL. Rushes per game, number 6. Rushing yards per game, number 3. Rushing touchdowns per game, number 2. The Packers, on the other hand, yards per rush, number 24. Rushes per game, 26th. Rushing yards per game, 28th. And rushing touchdowns per game, 20th. Key to the game, number 3, on top of what we talked about in the first half of the show, Niners have to avoid turnovers. And these are some pretty interesting numbers right here. When the Niners play a clean slate and they don't give it away, San Francisco is 8-0 when they don't turn the ball over this year. They are 4-5 when they do turn the football over. 9-1 when they force 2 or more takeaways, but 3-5 when they do not. So it sounds cliche, but the numbers are pretty telling here. Turnovers could decide this football game. And when you win the turnover battle in the NFL, you win between 70 and 80% of the time. At right tackle, it's going to be Colton McKivitz. And Colton McKivitz, I'm telling you right now, all eyes are on you. You play well over the next 3 games, you're going to be a Niner legend forever. You get dominated against Green Bay and San Francisco gets bounced early, you're going to be hated in the Bay Area. And this is a Packers defensive front and a Packers linebacking core that can get after the quarterback. They have some really good pass rushers. They're very skilled, and they're going to load up that McKivitz side because they know that is the weakness along this Niners offensive line. Rashawn Gary, 9 sacks this year. Preston Smith right behind him with 8. Kenny Clark, big defensive tackle. He's going to be lined up against Jake Brendel and most likely John Feliciano at right guard, 7.5 sacks. Devontae Wyatt has 5. Carl Brooks has 4. Lucas Van Ness, the rookie out of Iowa, also has 4. And they rotate these pass rushers, and they're going to try to exploit the weakness that is Colton McKivitz at right tackle. And this year, the numbers are clear. The tape tells the story. 47 pressures given up, 9 sacks allowed, 4 hits and 2 penalties. He's not bad in run blocking, and him and Mike McGlinchey were pretty much the same player this year, according to Pro Football Focus, but you got to give Brock Purdy a clean pocket because when he's under siege, he is prone to making some mistakes. And I think because of this, Kyle Shanahan's not dumb, right? You're going to see a George Kittle. You're going to see a Charlie Warner flanking to the right of Colton McKivitz to help chip and provide pass protection to that side. And I imagine Christian McCaffrey on throwing downs is going to have his eyes out of the backfield looking at that right side to see which blitzes are coming so that he can go over there and he can help in pass pro as well. Lastly, Niners have to attack this Packers secondary. As important as it is to establish the run and have success there, and remember what happened in the 2019 NFC Championship game when Raheem Mostert in San Francisco ran for 280-plus yards and Mostert had 4 touchdowns, this Packers secondary can be had. And again, as we talk about some of the injury news that's going on in this game, Eric Armstead's going to play. Dre Greenlaw's going to play. The Niners, some of the healthiest that they've been in a really, really long time. George Odom said on social media, little selfie mode, he's going to come back off that torn bicep. So the all-pro special teamer is going to be able to help this kick and punt return unit. All that is good. But Jair Alexander and that injury in the secondary does loom large for Green Bay. Desmond King, still a really good corner. They have some solid safety play. But Packers defensive coordinator Joe Barry has struggled against Kyle Shanahan. And Joe Barry actually used to work with Kyle Shanahan back when Shanahan was a wide receivers coach with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And his defensive scheme has always struggled against the Shanahan, McVay type of system. And with all the crossers, with all of the play action, with all of the creativity that Kyle Shanahan utilizes to free up his playmakers, you have to be able, especially to attack the middle area of the field where the Packers have been prone to giving up some big plays. I think that through the air and on the ground, this could also be a big Debo. Whoa, big Debo game. I want to see the Niners and Kyle Shanahan run Debo. It's the playoffs. Put the ball in the hands of your best playmakers. Bubble screens out to Debo. Crossers to Debo. Force this Packers team to match your level of physicality, which they haven't done, and that's why San Francisco has won 4 straight playoff games against this organization. With that, I ask you to predict the score. San Francisco, as well as the Green Bay Packers, clashing heads on Saturday night at Levi Stadium. I gave you my score prediction earlier this week on that other preview. I do think the Niners win. I'm thinking 26-21, 26-23, close game at Levi's.